When was the first time you stood up to your parents? I was 15 when I finally snapped. For 3 years, my parents had been using me as their personal translator, mediator, and emotional punching bag during their increasingly vicious divorce proceedings. Every fight, every court date, every bitter conversation somehow required my presence as the neutral party. Tell your father he's a pathetic excuse for a man, Mom would say while applying lipstick in the rearview mirror. Tell your mother she's completely delusional if she thinks she's getting the house, Dad would respond, knuckles white against the steering wheel. I became their human messenger service, carrying insults back and forth like some twisted game of telephone. They'd drag me to lawyers' offices, family therapy sessions, and mediation meetings, expecting me to explain why each parent was right and the other was obviously wrong. I'd sit in those sterile conference rooms, watching adults who were supposed to protect me use me as ammunition. The breaking point came during Thanksgiving at my grandmother's house. Both sides of the family had gathered for what everyone hoped would be a peaceful dinner. Dad brought his new girlfriend, Vanessa, who was 24 and barely older than my cousin. Mom brought her lawyer, Harrison, claiming he was just a friend. Within an hour, they were screaming about custody arrangements across my grandmother's antique dining table. Aunt Priscilla desperately tried to redirect conversation by asking about the football game. Uncle Bernard just kept refilling his wine glass. My 8-year-old cousin Theo started crying into his mashed potatoes. That's when Dad turned to me with that familiar, expectant look. Quincy, tell your mother that bringing her lawyer to family dinner is completely inappropriate and manipulative. I felt something crack inside my chest. No, I said quietly. The entire table went silent. Even the football commentary seemed to pause. Excuse me? Dad's voice had that dangerous edge. I stood up slowly, my chair scraping against the hardwood floor. I said no, I'm done being your personal messenger service. You want to talk to Mom? Talk to her yourself. You're both adults. Figure it out. Mom's face turned bright red. Quincy, sit down this instant. You don't understand. I understand perfectly, I interrupted. You're both so busy hating each other that you forgot you have a kid who just wants to eat Thanksgiving dinner without watching her parents destroy each other for entertainment. I grabbed my coat from the hall closet. Where do you think you're going? Dad demanded. Somewhere I don't have to choose sides every 5 minutes, I called back, already halfway to the door. I spent Thanksgiving at my friend Dahlia's house, eating leftover pizza and watching terrible holiday movies. Her parents asked no questions, just set an extra place at their kitchen table and treated me like family. When I came home that night, both parents were waiting in the living room. For the first time in months, they weren't glaring at each other. They were looking at me, really looking, like they'd just remembered I existed. We need to talk, Mom said softly. That conversation lasted 3 hours. I told them everything, how their constant fighting made me feel responsible for fixing their problems, how I'd stopped inviting friends over because I never knew what chaos I'd walk into, how I'd started having panic attacks before family events. Dad actually cried. Mom apologized repeatedly. They promised to keep me completely out of their legal battles. It took time, but they followed through. The divorce still happened 6 months later, but quietly, without me as their go-between. They started communicating directly through email and lawyers, like the adults they supposedly were. Now when people ask me about my parents' divorce, I tell them the truth. It was messy and painful, but I learned that sometimes standing up to people you love is the most loving thing you can do.